neither federal nor reserve, is created. It was planned at a secret meeting in 1910 on Jekyll Island in Georgia by a group of bankers and politicians, including Colonel House. And this transferred the power to create money from the Treasury of the United States government to a group of private bankers. It is probably the largest generator of debt in the world.
And we know from Isaiah 10, Micah 5, and several other passages that one of the key titles of the Antichrist is the Assyrian. The Assyrian.
We believe that the stage is being set for global tyranny. We're seeing the positioning going on that's going to make it very, very easy for a world dictator to take control of the structure. We know that Scripture describes just that, a world leader taking over a federation of global states.
But we're going to focus on one of these especially, Seleucus' kingdom of 64 BC, because Daniel, in Daniel 7 and Daniel 8, has much to say about this that's far more relevant to us than simply history. It's also predictive. So we're going to take a look at that. And of course, we've had a lot of attention in our own prophetic horizon because the Roman Empire seems to be getting ready for what we'll call Phase 2. The Treaty of Paris, the Treaties of Rome in middle 60th century, the European Parliament in 58, and we won't go through all the details, but obviously it is increasingly grown till in 1993 the Maastricht Treaty replaced the Treaty of Rome, which provides for a United States of Europe, if you will, common foreign policy, common military, common currency. And Euro, of course, is making its beginning. So there's been much attention on Europe as the emergent superstate, but a lot of that driven by the presumption that out of that will come the Antichrist. And indeed he may, except we're going to take a look at what Daniel and some of the other prophets have had to say about all this. In Daniel chapter 7, we now shift. Daniel had his experience with Nebuchadnezzar when he was a young man, and Nebuchadnezzar was also just taken over. The scene will shift in Daniel 7 towards the end of his time in Babylon, and he's going to talk about, we talked about the Daniel chapter 2, the many polymetallic image, Babylon, Persia, Greece, Rome. These same empires are profiled for Daniel by God directly, with a vision directly given to Daniel. Same subject, different idioms. Nebuchadnezzar saw it as man sees it, as a series of bright, shiny metals. God presented it to Daniel the way he sees it, as a string or a series of voracious beasts. In Daniel chapter 7, he sees a creature that looks sort of like a winged lion. Then that's followed by a bear that rises up on one side. And that's followed by a leopard that's moves so fast that he hardly touches the ground. And then there's the fourth one is so terrible, Daniel can't even find a comfortable parallel. He just calls it the great and terrible beast. And it's the one that has the 10 heads. And all these idioms are echoed for us all through the Scripture, including the book of Revelation. So these idioms become very familiar to us if you study prophecy. But in Daniel chapter 7, we're going to take a look at some of the verses. It says, starting about verse 17, these great beasts, which are four, there again, you see you have the emphasis on four, not five, four. That last one is in two phases is the point. Which are four kings, or kingdoms, the same word in the Hebrew, Melech, shall arise out of the earth. But the saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever and ever. Daniel says, then I would know the truth of the fourth beast. It's interesting that Daniel doesn't ask questions of his visitor about the first, second, or third. He zeroes in on the fourth one, and we're grateful for that because that's the one we think we know about the other three from history. The fourth one is the big mystery. Then I would know the truth of the fourth beast, which was diverse from all the others, exceedingly dreadful, whose teeth were of iron, his nails of brass, which devoured, brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with his feet. And of the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other which came up, before whom 3 fell, even that horn that had eyes, and a mouth that spake very great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows. So we know it's a person. But notice there are 10 horns. Those 10 horns are going to be echoed through so many prophecies, they're very familiar to us in Scripture, that so familiar that we overlook the 11th. And of the other which came up. So it's 10 plus 1. This final super leader you could call the 11th horn. Are we together? Okay. And I beheld that same horn made war with the saints and prevailed against them. Now that should startle you. The Antichrist is going to make war with the saints and prevail against him. That's what it is in Daniel 7. You remember in Revelation 13:7, Revelation 13 has the famous two beasts. It was given unto him to make war with the saints, and guess what? To overcome them. And power was given him over all kindreds, tongues, and nations. And because of these comments, that's why many people jump to the conclusion that the church will go through the tribulation, because they're going to be suffered at the hands of the Antichrist. That's because so many of it, most people have people who think the church goes through the tribulation don't have a problem with eschatology, they have a problem with ecclesiology, to understand the nature and the uniqueness of the church. Not all saints are members of the church. And to understand that, you need to understand carefully about John the Baptist, as an example. Jesus said, no man born of woman is greater than John the Baptist. That's pretty good. That's pretty exciting. And in his next breath, he says, he that's least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than John. What on earth did he mean by that? Are you saying that John is not saved? No. But he's not, because a few verses later he explains that the law and the prophets were until John. John the Baptist closes the Old Testament. Luke 16:16, Matthew 11, you can look it up. The point is, understand there were people that were saved in the Old Testament. There are people that will be saved during tribulation, but they're not in the church. The church is a uniquely blessed subgroup, if you will. Not all elect or all saints are in the same category. And in fact, the word prevailed against them and overcome them, it's the same concept. When you get to Matthew 16 and 18 at Caesarea Philippi, Jesus makes a statement that's very important. He says, I say unto thee, thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not, what? Prevail against it. And that's in contrast distinction to both the Old and New Testament revelations, both in Revelation 13:7 and Daniel 7:21-22. So the point is, what I'm trying to get across is recognize the church has a distinctive in that it won't be in the tribulation for a number of reasons. But in any case, let's move on. I beheld the same horn made war with the saints that prevailed against them until the Ancient of Days came and judgment was given to the saints of the Most High, and the time came that the saints possessed the kingdom. And then it goes on. And thus he said, the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon the earth, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and shall tread it down and break it in pieces. And the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise. It doesn't say those 10 kings come together to create that empire. They arise out of that empire. Another shall arise after them. There's another again. And he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue 3 kings. So you have 10, he's going to subdue 3, that gives you the 7. You'll see that come up again and again. But again, we have this another. I'm going to call him the 11th horn. Daniel 7 gives us some other insight into the guy. He shall speak great words against the Most High. You know, that's the most consistent descriptor of the Antichrist. You'll find it all through the book of Revelation, all through the Old Testament. If you want a nickname for this guy, call him Mr. Big Mouth, because he's always sounding off, every place you see him. He shall speak great words against the Most High. He shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws. And they shall be given into his hand until, and here's one of these quaint phrases, a time and times and the dividing of time. Now you and I, in our language, generally have a singular or a plural. But some languages, and Hebrew and Aramaic, have what's called